if you would like, could you start out just by discussing, I gave, sort of the key points, but from a very broad standpoint, if you could discuss your career background, what drove you to transition into marketing?
Yeah, well, actually, I was a marketing major at Whitman. So I actually started thinking I wanted to go into marketing. I know, most people, they don't really go into their major, I guess, but I actually started as a marketing major, and that was my degree from SU. And then I did 2 years working in New York City for a publishing company, and then I did a year at a company that was selling internet services before there was the internet. Yes, there was a time before there was the internet, and I got laid off my first job. They closed the company because at the time the regulatory environment didn't allow for growth of the internet. So
Wow.
yeah, so I got laid off my first job at 22. And I had a boss at the time who told me to go back and get an MBA, and so I did. So with 2 years work experience, which is kind of on the light side, I went back to Emory here in Atlanta, which is how I got down here the first time, and did my MBA. And so I've had a bunch of different roles, everything from product development and marketing in a small housewares company. I've also done traditional CPG for Diageo, which, if you don't know Diageo, it's actually the largest spirits, wine, and beer company in the world. So I worked on brands like Smirnoff Vodka, Bailey's Irish Cream, Cuervo Tequila, Malibu Rum, Captain Morgan, you name it. I've drunk it and marketed it, basically. So, and then, yeah, just kind of life took me out to California, and I had a real opportunity to blend my experience in working in a small housewares company, product development, but I did licensing work, and then my traditional CPG background, and that's how I got to Warner Brothers, working on Harry Potter and the consumer products division, and
Wow.
did all the brand management. And so anything that any licensee or retail partner around the world needed to make Harry Potter something would go through my team.
And there was an awful lot of that being done around the world.
Yeah. And then I also had the opportunity from the very beginning to work on the theme park. So if anybody's been to the Wizarding World down in Orlando, and now there's a few more around the world. There's one in LA now, in Universal City. There's one in Japan. I was the first project team on the very first one, 15 years ago, when it was just like an idea in their head. And so, yeah, that was really fun. And then I did 10 years at Cartoon Network in branding, brand strategy, franchise management, which is like a strategic planning role. And then, to be honest, I've been in sports for, I think it's 4 months, maybe this week coming up.
Wow. And you've had an interesting 4 months in sports. So you've gone from
4 months.
You've gone from working in the adult beverage industry to working with cartoons and the wizarding world of Harry Potter to now sports.
Movies,
so you've lived out a career that is, you've covered a lot of grounds, and I think it would be a dream for many. So congratulations, we applaud you for that. And now, when I met you back in October, I believe it was, you were still working at Cartoon Network. You transitioned onto the sports side of Turner. And what has that been like, your introduction to the sports industry after spending that time in entertainment?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because we have a campus here in Atlanta, the Legacy Turner networks, which were a part of Warner Media now. They've kind of sliced and diced this up a little differently. And so now I work as part of the Warner Media News and Sports division, but the sports team was always just 2 floors away from us. So I knew a lot of those folks, which was interesting. I think there's definitely a lot of similarities, but some differences. I think the similarities are from the TV side of it. So understanding production and scheduling and the content side and planning, and then the marketing piece of it. So linear marketing with spots and how to promote and messaging and all that. You're the typical marketing piece. So I think that was definitely similar. I think there's 2 things in sports that were very different. One is the live component of it, right? you know, when you work in TV or films, which I've done, it's everything is in the can, and, you know, you're working as you're going towards a launch of a series or a launch of a film, and the lead times are super long. So in films, you're looking at a good 2 years. And then in animation, particularly, the lead time is very long. And especially in the roles I've done where you've had to work towards usually consumer products launches, you're talking 18 months out. So we worked on super long lead times. Sports is topical, right? And it's you know, what happened 2 hours ago in the game or 2 minutes ago in the game. So it's really working close in. So the live piece of it is really different for me. We haven't had anything live really yet. We did one match, and we'll talk about that, the golf match. But you know, so there's definitely learning for me there. And then the other piece of it is the ad sales piece. And so for those who don't know, you make money in cable in two ways, mainly two ways. And one of it is through advertising sales, which is we sell ads on our networks to different advertisers. And the other is subscription fees, where the companies that carry our networks, anything from a Comcast cable, AT&T cable, to, you know, to a streaming service like YouTube or Dish, they all pay us a fee for every single subscriber who has access to our networks. And so it's a dual revenue stream, and that's how we make money. In the sports world, the ad sales side and the sponsorship side and the official marketing partner side of it is so important and so different, that especially coming from kids where you're not allowed to do any of that for legal reasons. You can't, you know, tie in things to kids' content, and it's a very big separation of church and state, so to speak, with kids. The sports side is like, okay, how much stuff can I pile in without it feeling like too much for my sponsors and for our official partners? So that's another big learning piece for me.
So only 2 floors away.
Yes.
But a world of differences in between the two industries. Absolutely. You mentioned the one live event that you've been able to work on and work with, and it really has been the penultimate live event of COVID-19, of the pandemic in the world of sports. Of course, we're referencing Turner Sports' The Match, which featured Tiger Woods, Tom Brady, Phil Mickelson, and Peyton Manning in a massive golf event. That was one of the most highly marketed sports events in history, from a live programming standpoint.
Yeah.
Tell us about your role in that.
Well, I don't know about most in history, but it was the #1 golf event ever watched on cable, outside, you know, over some even Masters rounds that were broadcast on cable a couple of years ago. I mean, my team had the pleasure and the challenge of, in a really tight window, getting the word out there that this was happening. And so I think there's a couple of challenges. One is there's a lot of clutter out there in the news cycle. You know, and people are watching, you know, more news than ever, and also binge watching streaming services more than ever. I think the second thing is that people are like, oh, there's no sports. Like, people know that it's been shut down. So we had to let them know that, hey, we have this thing going on, and come find it, and we're going to put it on TNT, and it's going to be awesome. So you need to watch. So I think those were the two messages, like the two challenges: cutting through the clutter, and then just the awareness and tune in piece. And then the second piece was just conveying what this was going to be about. And it was, you know, not straight-laced, serious golf, but it had some personality to it and a little trash talking to it. And so all, you know, tonally, our creative team did a, you know, really great job capturing the essence of the 4 players. If you saw, they put together kind of a like press conference show with Ernie Johnson, who, you know, hosts our NBA on TNT, who's like the best in the biz, and really like drawing out the personalities and a little bit of the trash talking, you know, amongst the 4 of them. And so I think that was the key of like, hey, how do we take pieces of that? Our creative guys cut it into really interesting spots, and then how do we get it out there in the world to let people know this is happening and why they want to tune in.
Right. I mean, it was, from my standpoint, for my viewership right here in my basement in New Jersey, it was the most exciting thing that I had to look forward to in sports in so long. And I know a lot of people that felt that way as well. From a marketing standpoint, there was a lot of sponsorship involved. One thing that comes to mind was the Cisco WebEx cam that was used on the golf carts, which were then also auctioned off. Did you play any role in acquiring those sponsorships and sort of integrating that into the broadcast?
So our ad sales team, actually, they're the guys. So we have a team up in New York we have a very specific sports ad sales team. So Warner Media has an ad sales group. The sports group is actually broken out from the rest of the entertainment group, which is another reason why the learning's different. So my old job at Cartoon Network, the people who manage it there also manage TBS and TNT and CNN, but the sports group is separate. And actually, the guy who runs the sports group is also a Syracuse grad. Just throw that in there. I was just on
nice plug.
Just on a nice plug there. I was on a call with him. We were just on a call a couple hours ago about something, and so he and his team, they're the people who are like, okay, how can we integrate, like WebEx as a sponsor, or Capital One was the main sponsor. It was Capital One's The Match, and how do they do that? Finding the right pieces for each group, and obviously WebEx felt like a natural fit for the match, and they used it in the promotional lead up, the thing with Ernie Johnson and some of that work, and also during the match. But my team, one of the interesting things that my team did was we worked with, I don't know if anybody has heard of the All In Challenge, which is something that Fanatics, the merchandise, sports merchandise company, put on. We worked with them as one of the official partners, and that was more of a marketing effort where the All In Challenge was a fundraising effort to help with COVID-19 giving to food charities. So things like No Kid Hungry and Meals on Wheels. And there were 5 charities that they picked out. And we partnered, and there's all these celebrity and like ultimate packages that you can either bid on, and some of them go for, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or other ones you can buy a $10, ticket for a $10 donation, and you can have a chance to win, to play golf with Phil Mickelson, or, go to a Bucks game, as the guest of Tom Brady. Is that weird to say go to a Bucks game as the guest of Tom Brady, right?
It doesn't sound right quite yet.
Okay, I'm a Giants fan. So, so we partnered with them, and we built out a whole the match special webpage, and we helped push, they helped push our event, and then we pushed to it during the event so it could help spur donations. And between that and corporate giving and our partners and the players, I mean, we raised $20 million, and then Warner Media kind of rounded the rest out and rounded it up to 20 million. That went to COVID charity, for COVID related efforts, having to do with food and some small business charities as well. So that was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, and for an amazing cause. Absolutely. I noticed that a big element of the match was the personalities. You saw how much having a Tiger Woods and having a Phil Mickelson let their guard down in a way that we're not used to seeing them. And the same goes for Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. But then from a Turner standpoint, you had guys like Charles Barkley being involved. What is the importance of a company to have their personalities be so willing to go across the line into a different sport and into an event like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I have to say I'm definitely not the expert in the talent space, having been with this division for 4 months. But as a fan, I'll tell you, I think I'll tell you as much as I know from a corporate point of view. It's extremely important. From a fan point of view, and I'm a huge fan of Charles Barkley. I got to meet him once so far, and I was just like, I'm like in awe, because he's such a personality, and he tells it like it is. But I think that's why, we're the best in the business. I think if you watch the NBA on TNT, which they film in our building. We have studios downstairs on our campus, and they film that Thursday nights and sometimes Tuesday nights now. And I mean, I see, you know, on Twitter, like people are like, God, I miss those guys. Like they're part of your family, and to have people who are personalities that are so engaging, and then to your point, are willing to go out and do something else as well is really, really important to the product. I mean, honestly, when, you know, Charles was trash talking Tom, and then Tom made that 100-yard, I think it was only a birdie. I don't think it was an eagle, but it was that awesome shot. I mean, that was a classic moment, right? Like that's like, you could have scripted that. You could have put that in a movie, but it just worked so well because it was really who they are. It wasn't BS. It was totally authentic. And so I think that authenticity is just super important.
Absolutely. Speaking about, you know, the inside the NBA crew that we all have come to know and love, when you've made this transition into the sports world, in your mind, how much anticipation did you have and excitement did you have to work with that crew and with that program in particular from a marketing standpoint?
Oh, I'm thrilled. Super excited. Super excited. I mean, you know, we're building our plans right now. My team, working with, we have an in-house media agency. We're building the plans for the comeback. And, you know, like I said, those guys are the best in the business. I'm a fan. I'm a huge sports fan. I don't think I said that. Like, I don't know why I haven't worked in sports sooner, because anybody who knows me knows I watch basketball all the time, or football or whatever. I'll watch anything, any Syracuse sport, you know, I'll watch it. But like huge fan. And I have, in the 10 years I've been with the company, I have never gone down and watched the show live. And I don't know why. I kept meaning to, but now, like, I plan to go all the time. I was down there. It was interesting. We also broadcast NBA TV downstairs in our studios. We have all those studios if you ever watch NBA TV. And I was down there once, and, you know, like Isaiah Thomas was down there, the original, the Pistons, Isaiah Thomas.
Zeke, yep.
I'm like, Zeke, exactly. I'm like, that's Isaiah Thomas. Like, that's like huge. You know, he's like a legend. And so you kind of like wander around down there and you see all these legends, and it's pretty cool. So as like a fan, like, this is gonna be fun. We just got to get past the global pandemic.
Right, that little thing.
That thing. Maybe they'll let us back in the building. Maybe next year.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it sounds like one of the best perks you can have in the role that you're working in.
But also, to the point of your earlier question, is understanding the live production process and really getting, okay, what are the implications of that from what my team can do from a marketing point of view, right? Like, are there things we should be thinking about differently? Are there points in the show that are, you know, what is it about the content? What is it about the cadence? You know, are there things we should be pulling out for spots or a campaign or something like that? So I think that's really important as well, and understanding that piece of it and the real-time piece of it, which is very different than the TV and the film side.
Right. Especially, I mean, for a live production, you have so many moving pieces and moving parts.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, to have these obligations from a contractual standpoint of, our money comes from this, having to get this done.
Yeah, all the sponsors in there and making sure, you know, everything's tagged correctly and all that. I mean, your new house, like, you know, you get to do it every day, right?
Absolutely. It's the most, I mean, it shouldn't, in some people's minds, you know, you don't think of it as, from a viewership standpoint, as being what matters most, but there's a lot of money on the line and a lot of jobs on the line for things like that. Absolutely. So speaking of the NBA, we're all sort of waiting to see what happens next. I feel like every day we get a little more information from an insider about this and that. Tonight, the schedule will be released. What have you been doing
on NBA TV tonight?
Yes, there you go. There's another plug for you in the Turner family. What have you been doing to prepare from a marketing standpoint for this? I mean, it's just going to be such a massive deal to have American sports back in this way.
Yeah. So, quite honestly, just about as soon as it was put on hiatus, we started working on contingency planning, the whole division, not just marketing, the whole everybody. And oops, knocked my phone over. And really trying to understand what are the opportunities, understand the audience. So from a marketing point of view, really understand the consumer, the fan, where's their mind right now? I mean, I think there's a lot going on in the world. And, you know, how everybody wants sports, everybody misses sports, but I think we have to really keep in mind, everybody says that they're gonna like watch a ton, but there's a lot of people out of work. There's a lot of people who are scrounging for jobs. And so are people gonna have as much time as they think they're gonna have or say they're gonna have? And so, you know, with everything else being equal and limited time, how do we get them to come watch our network and watch our games and, you know, and really tout what we have to offer? And so we've been working on planning for 3 months since it stopped till this point. And just like finishing touches on the plans. We're in the execution phase, and we've got some really exciting things. It's gonna be some fun things going forward that I can't tell you about, but there's gonna be some really interesting, you know, we're gonna do some fun stuff. So
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I know you can't get too deep into detail, and I won't try and pry it out of you. But the fun stuff that you're talking about, is it more from like an activation standpoint, more from a commercial standpoint, more from an in-game standpoint? What kind of reference points do we have here? Okay.
Everything's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be really fun. It is. And I mean, you can you know, read all the stuff in the press about, you know, the bubble and what that looks like and the challenges and opportunities. And I think what we're just trying to do is take advantage of all the opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, in this terrible circumstances, a lot of opportunities will arise. And when things change, you need to be adaptable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the flexibility piece is really important. We were talking a little bit about that earlier today. I mean, we can plan and, you know, put it in ink and, you know, cross the T's and dot the I's, but something's going to happen. Somebody's going to get sick. And I hate to say it, but we all know that's going to be the case. And so what does that mean? And how do we plan for that? And yeah, so it's just, you know, not necessarily get sick, but test positive. That's just math right now, right? So, I mean, I think we just have to, you know, plan as well as we can and then figure out how we pivot with our plans, with our money, with our messaging. That's the best we can do. But one of the challenges I think now, just media-wise, with sports coming back, with NHL's coming back, baseball, we do baseball too, by the way, MLB. So we've got that we're working on. We have a Sunday night package, and then we do playoffs as well. You know, with that, the media market's going to start getting more crowded. So there was a dearth of companies buying media, and now I think, you know, we've got to look at, hey, are the prices going to get driven up by now all of a sudden, you know, basics of supply and demand. And so working with our in-house media agency on what the opportunities are, you know, there's that flexibility between, you know, how much we can spend, like what our budgets are obviously, and then, you know, figuring out the balance between spend, locking down things, and then where the flexibility has to be.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's going to be, it's unprecedented, but preparing for plans A through Z seems to be the process that you guys are taking.
Yeah, we had a massive plan, you know, that we worked on. So, and it was a real team effort, which was great. It was a full division effort, and it had to be. And I think most companies, quite honestly, are going through that right now. If they're not, you know, I know SU has a plan. They have a whole strategy and plan for everything from operating to reopening to, because I sit on enough of those meetings. So, you know, every company should be doing contingency planning, back to work planning, you know, all of that. So.
Yeah. I want to stick on the topic of being a part of a team.
Yeah.
I mean, a majority of your career in sports has come in, crazy circumstances. But
Mhm.
what have been some successful methods to maintaining an environment that fosters positivity and an environment that works together, not only in these circumstances, but what have you seen that works well for a group that works in sports together?
Yeah. Well, these circumstances are hard. I think so. I started my job, and then 2 weeks later, they sent us home, basically. Right. And so I met the people on my team, some of them like once in person. Um, so I have about 25, 26 people on my team, I guess, something like that. And with our interns, maybe a little more. And it was just, I didn't have the opportunity to meet them. And so now everything is appointment viewing, right? It's like I have to go to this box or this box
Right.
and be like, okay, we can talk at 12:45 on Tuesday the 7th, whatever it is. And it's harder. You miss the, you know, seeing someone in the break room or in the cafeteria, or we have a Starbucks on our campus, and you just, see somebody at the Starbucks getting their coffee in the morning and have a chat about whatever, or, even talk about sports. Like, we work in sports and we don't even talk about sports. Like, we talk about planning sports and marketing sports and programming sports, but haven't talked about a game in a really long time. So it's kind of odd. So we had a conversation, the team did. I try and do all staffs every couple of weeks. And I think one of the key things for me is, look, I can say a lot of things, but words are hollow without trust, and you can't trust someone unless you know someone. So it behooves me to get to know people as much as possible. And so I'm trying to meet, I have 6 direct reports. I meet with them pretty regularly. Other teams, like my MBA team, I talk to those guys 3 times a week. I have an MBA digital team under me. I talk to those guys all the time. But then I have a data ops team, and I don't talk to them as much because they kind of do their thing, and, like, it just runs, right? So those guys I need to talk more. Or, my team who worked on the match we do the NCAA tournament, which got canceled like the same week, right? So,
right. Yeah.
So I didn't get to see those guys for a little while, and then the match came, and now it was a little lull. Now we've got baseball, though, because we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for baseball. Now that we don't have a schedule for that yet. Hopefully soon. We've got some timing, but we don't have the schedule yet. But yeah, so it's appointment viewing now. So I've got to make the extra effort to really just get to know people.
Makes sense. What in the idealistic world where all goes back to normal and sports go back to being what we've known to love and known for them to be, what event, what tournament, what programming are you looking the most forward to? You personally looking the most forward to working on?
Oh, wow. Well, so I got a note forwarded to me from somebody from the NCAA for an NCAA meeting, and somebody wrote, well, since we canceled the last one, we have to make it extra special for Tracy. And I said, well, we can make it extra special if we can guarantee Syracuse will be in the Final Four on the next one. My reply back was like, so if you could work on that for me, that would be good.
If you could get a second gig on the selection committee, maybe.
Exactly. So I thought, maybe I could throw that in there. I'd love to see, I think, March Madness last year was supposed to be in Atlanta, where I live too. So it's a huge event. So and we work on that in partnership with CBS. And I think, again, that would be a super interesting, just learning experience on how the networks work together, how the broadcast piece works of it. It's a lot more intricate. And there's a lot of planning amongst, when we took it over, now you can watch any game. Every single game is broadcast now. And back in the day, like, it'd be like, oh, if you were in the East, you could see the East bracket, but if SU was playing in the West, then you were like kind of screwed, and then you couldn't see them. So now you can watch every game on linear or digital through our March Madness Live app, which my team markets as well. So I'm really excited. Like, I'm really, really excited for the NBA. I'm excited for all of it, but I'd like to see the NCAA tournament from like start to finish, because I think it's just so big.
Yeah. I mean, that is, it's the best time of the year for sports fans, I think,
Yeah.
especially college sports fans, to have all of that. And
Yeah.
the Turner and CBS deal was a game changer, to be able to watch every game, like you said, whether online or on cable, having access to all of that at once. It creates a lot of opportunities, not only for fans and for
Yeah.
the athletes themselves to be visible, but from the standpoint is massive.
Yeah, from the ad standpoint, yeah, for advertisers, it's huge, and partners, and um, and it's really important for universities. I mean, it's important. They make a lot of smaller schools make all their revenue from that tournament, and it supports a lot of the world. So,
That's an important way of looking at it. And it's not the first thing that a sports fan will think of, or even a lot of people that are affiliated with these universities, whether they
yeah.
are students themselves. But yeah, absolutely. We're going to do a little bit of Q&A mixed in here.
Okay.
Well, one question that I can come up with myself, I'd like to answer for myself in addition to our
Okay.
participants, I'm sure. Leadership advice,
Yeah,
pointers, what do you have for college students?
it's a great question. So a couple things I'd say when you're first starting out, or if you're doing an internship, the first thing I always tell people who are new to working or new in a role is to pick your head up. And when I say pick your head up, a lot of people, they've got their head down to like, I got to do my job, I got to do my job, I got to do my job. But part of your job is learning about the business at large, right? Part of your job is understanding how your piece of the pie fits in the bigger business, how that fits in the bigger business, and so on and so on. I mean, I would say for you that it's amazing to me how many people who work for our company don't understand how we make money. And so that's why I explain the revenue stream, the two, ad sales and sub fees, piece of it. On the traditional television side. Now we'll have HBO Max, we'll have consumer products, we've got a bunch of other things. But, I think it's really, really important to pick your head up and learn about the company and how your role fits in the company, because you'll do your job better that way. If you understand not just how your role impacts the next piece down the chain, but the bigger company at large. And I think it's super, super important for young people. People just starting out. And the second piece is to meet people and get involved outside your job, get involved with other parts of the company. A lot of companies have business resource groups or training programs or mentorship programs. I ran the mentor program for the Turner Women Group for 5 years. I sat on their board for more than that. I mentored for 10 straight years. So this is actually the first year I'm not mentoring. I took a break after 10 years. But I met my current boss, a bunch of my current peers through the Turner Women Group and through my experiences there. That's how I know a lot of them, and it's just from doing other things at the company. So I'd say definitely get involved wherever you work, big company, small company, doesn't matter. But that's how you'll meet people. You'll get your name out there. People will know through the work you do that, hey, you've got a lot to offer. So those would be like two pieces of advice for college students or new grads. And and if you're doing an internship, like, go meet people around. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a SU intern in the department next to me, sat on my floor. She never came and saw me once. Somebody introduced her to me. Never came and saw me once. And I'm like, what a missed opportunity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's picking your head up right there. Yeah.
Pick your head up. Exactly.
Yeah. So that leads me to, I mean, the advice that you've given, it seems like you've done a very good job of following that yourself, especially in recent times, since you made that transition I mean, you said it was literally two floors away, from the entertainment and Cartoon Network side to sports. So you're the embodiment of sort of picking your head up and seeing what's around you.
Yeah, transferable skills too is the other thing. Don't always think you have to go like this in your career. I've taken titles down to learn things I thought I needed to learn to go back up again.
Mm. That makes a lot of sense.
I've had 5 director titles. I've had 3 VP titles. I've got a bunch of manager titles in my career, but I've stretched this way. And it's allowed me to go from housewares to liquor to movie merchandise to television to sports to like kids TV to sports.
Wow. What's one experience in your early working career, whether it was an internship or an entry-level job, that has stuck with you and you see to be something that continues to pay dividends now?
Oh, that's a great question. My very first job out of grad school, and I was still pretty young at the time, I was only maybe 25, 26, 25. I worked for a small housework company, and it was, it was a family-owned company, mother, father, son, not the easiest work environment, but I learned, because it was such a small company, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, I got to go work for this big company, which I work for a massive company now. AT&T is Warner Media. It's one of the biggest in the world, but I worked for this really small company, and I learned, I had to do everything. So I had to do the market research. I had to do the product line assortment. I had to do the costing. I had to go to the factory and learn how manufacturing was done on a line. I had to go to Asia and learn how things were sourced, how to, buy merchandise out of Hong Kong and Taipei. Like, I was doing that at like 27. So, that's, so because a lot of times if you start out, you're in like a kind of a small, more of a niche role. If you work for a small company, usually you get to do more. Your breadth of what, because there's nobody else to do it. So you just figure it out.
Right. We have a question from an audience member here, Lorenzo Daniel. He asks, when you were evaluating schools for your business degree, what factors did you value as being most important?
Well, that's a great question. So obviously I went to SU undergrad, big school, rah-rah school, very much a campus environment. One of the things I love about SU. For grad school, I wanted small, I wanted top program, and I wanted in a major city. And Guzweta Business School, it was Emory Business School at the time, before Mr. Guzweta generously donated a lot of money to rename school. It's the only top 25 program that has small classes in a big city. It's the only one. So that was the deciding factor for me. It had good general business, had good marketing, but I really wanted to be in a city. I thought it was really important to be part of the business community. So I didn't look at schools that were in like college towns. I only looked at schools that were in cities. I looked at like New York, LA, Atlanta, DC. Yeah.
That's really interesting, because in my undergrad search, I struggled with that. I struggled with, especially, in a similar field and industry, what's more important to me, the big city or the program? And it was hard to find in broadcasting the one place that fit that Venn diagram.
Yeah.
I ultimately chose Syracuse, and I've been happy with how it's worked out. But you went to a school that had a great program in Atlanta, and now these years later, you're still working in that city. And I'm assuming a lot of the relationships you formed during that MBA time period have stuck with you.
Yeah. I've done a lot of work for the business school at Emory too. I've moved and came back though. I mean, I've lived on the West Coast. I've lived in Miami. I've lived in LA. I lived in Northern California for a minute. So I've done like a full circle and come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah. You've hit both coasts, probably 3 or 4 different, three times, all 3 time zones, mate.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of your roles that you've held, and part of why I met you back in the fall, was with your involvement with the Syracuse University Alumni Board.
Yes.
How important is giving back to you? I mean, I've seen it firsthand, and your participation in this as well as a testament to that. But why is it so important to you?
Yeah, I love. It gives me true intrinsic joy to talk to students. It really does, because you guys appreciate it. You do. I mean, every student I talk to, I know they appreciated it. I mean, 99% of them will say, I'm very lucky. I grew up in a very, I have great parents, great family. My parents have been married almost 60 years. I grew up in a very nice, upper middle class neighborhood in Jersey, Jersey we were talking about.
Right.
And, shame on me if I don't use my superpowers for good. And so the way I use them is talking to students, mentoring students, and giving back to a place that helped shape me as a person. And one of those places is Syracuse University. And so, I have had the distinct privilege, and it's interesting. I've spent 10 years on the SUAA board, Syracuse University Alumni Association board. My term ends June 30th. So after 10 years and serving as president, and during that time, I got to serve on the board of trustees. I also got to address students at graduation in the Dome twice, which was a thrill. To talk to 25,000 people.
Big honor, absolutely, yeah.
The Alumni Association, but it's just so important. I mean, we're so lucky to be at a place like SU. I mean, people would kill to be at our school. It's a special place. It's, no place is perfect, but for the most part, I mean, I've got friends for 30 years now, and they will be friends of mine for 30 more, for sure. And it helped shape me, and it gave me a lot of opportunities and a lot of introductions to people and a lot of opportunities for experiences. And it just means a lot. And so I want to, be able to provide those experiences to other people. So
that brings a smile to my face. I think that's a good testament for anyone. I mean, at any stage of their career, to keep that mantra. My grandma always says it's a blessing to be a blessing.
Yes.
And that's something that I think holds true with what you're saying.
Yes.
Another question we have here from Laura. Sports has long been an arena for social change, and athletes represent heroes for many. What do you see as the responsibility or role that athletes have to support that sort of activism?
So I'm not a professional athlete. I'm a high school armchair athlete. I played organized sports, was in high school, which was a long time ago, and I can play golf or tennis, but not very well anymore. So I don't want to say that to make a judgment of like what their responsibility is. I think it's an individual choice on how you decide to interact with something or not interact with something. I will say that our networks, NBA on TNT specifically, that show, if you watched it, and if you watched it recently, when the NBA came back, we did an hour plus long show, live show, where we kind of combined the discussions around the comeback of the NBA with Adam Silver and the issues of racial injustice in this country that had been going on at the time, and talked to Adam about it, and then had our own guys talk about it, and they're pretty darn frank about it. They'll tell you what they feel and what they're thinking. And like I said, they've got Ernie Johnson there and kind of, pulls the group together, and he's one of the best in the business. And so I don't think, our networks have ever shied away from that. I think they do it in a really interesting, compelling, classy, yes, a super authentic way. And so, it seems like we give them that license to do that. So I can't answer the question on, what their role is or not. I think that's an individual choice on how you want to respond to anything. I do believe that sports has the power to change. I mean, lots of things. I mean, God, who hasn't watched the Olympics, right? Like, how many times do you cry when like some underdog wins the Olympics? I was watching Miracle was on something, guys know Miracle, like the 80 hockey team.
Right. Absolutely, yeah.
Miracle on Ice. I mean, that movie gets me every time. Like I'm old enough to remember watching that as a kid. I mean, that was a monumental world political statement, not making a political statement, but it was a world event. That hockey game was a world defining event. And so, there's other opportunities out there. So sorry, I can't answer that question totally like that, but.
I mean, your answer was great nonetheless. And I think I have a great follow-up for it. We're
Yeah,
seeing so many companies and brands pivot towards using their voices for change, given what has been really the greatest civil uprising
yeah,
in this country, at least since the 1960s. Now you have a unique opportunity to have combine these brands and the messages that they're putting out there with what your programming is and what the niche of Turner Sports is.
yeah.
In what ways are you looking forward to marrying those factors?
Yeah, well, I think the show that I just mentioned was a great example of that. Like I said, we've used our voices. We did some programming right before kind of everything shut down on International Women's Day, where we interviewed women in sports, players, executives. The president of the Dallas Mavs, we interviewed her, and if you follow them, they had some issues with misogyny and kind of
Misconduct in their front office a few
misconduct.
years ago.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's a good. I was looking for the right word. Thank you. And so we've done those things kind of all along. I think if you go to the press and you look at Warner Media as a company, and we are storytellers from every division, from sports to CNN to our films to our TV shows, and we have. I know like Warner Brothers Studio was one of the first studio, and it's they have a oh God, what's the word, where you have to have a certain amount of women and people of color behind the camera, not just in front of the camera, right? And so like
the quota.
yeah, now quota is a bad word. That's not a good word. I think there's just to make sure that we're maximizing the talent in front and behind the camera and giving people those opportunities. There's tons of people out there that are super qualified but never have the opportunity because they don't have either the connections or the schooling or whatever
Resources.
yeah. And so Warner Brothers or Warner Media, all our divisions have made commitments to that, to tell our stories. And we have a new CEO. He's been around 2 months, and he's made a commitment to that as well. But so yeah.
Absolutely.
Collision Writer, yes, thank you. Thank you.
So
Thank
David Levine also has
Thank
a
you.
question.
I was like, damn, I couldn't think of it.
He has a question here.
Yeah.
And he said that, I know that you left 4 months ago, but
Yes.
did you play any role in putting Cartoon Network onto HBO Max? How does a deal like that work? And what impact does them being under the Warner Media umbrella play in that?
Yeah. So HBO Max so it was Time Warner, and it was Warner Brothers, HBO, and Turner. And then when AT&T bought us, they reshuffled the deck, and it's Warner Media News and Sports, Warner Media Entertainment Group, and Warner Brothers. And under the entertainment group, is HBO, TBS, TNT, True TV, and they put HBO Max in there. And so that's where that is. And so that's like a massive corporate-wide initiative to figure out what the balance is of still feeding our linear networks, which are very, do make a lot of money for us, and then building this new streaming service that, is the on-demand kind of technological more wave of the future. And so there's a big balance in what goes where, and that's a lot of our programming team, quite honestly, our programming teams, because it's not just about the US, right? So we launch HBO Max in the US, but then when you start looking globally, cable penetration globally is not as high as it is in the US. So then to get our brands out there in countries all over the world, they will sell those shows to what they call free to air, which is like the broadcast networks all over the world. So there's deals like everywhere, all over the world, for content for every network. And you could even sell your show to a competitive network that, there are places around the world that a Cartoon Network show in the US might run on Nickelodeon elsewhere, which seems really weird, but that's how it is. And so, so it is a massively complex project that I played very little role in, but helped where I was asked to. How about that?
David appreciates your feedback there. Another question that we have from Jonathan Barnett. Working in sports is a dream for many.
Yes.
How do students differentiate from others when competing for the job of a lifetime?
Oh, yeah. So I think the first thing is being prepared, right? So you could be a huge sports fan or a huge cartoon fan and not be prepared for the business and not understand the business and what the needs are of the business. So I'd say for anybody is understand what the needs are of the role in the business. And that's the lift your head up thing a little bit. It's like, what is that employer looking for? And then, so I would say to everyone, this is Tracy Barash's like interviewing skill, like tip of the year. An open job is an unmet need. You need to demonstrate why you're the best person to fulfill that need.
I think we need to put this in the notes of the Zoom call so everyone can
like
get
when
a hold of that.
When I do interviewing workshops, that's what I'll tell people. And so what are they looking for? How can you fulfill that need? How do you add value to that organization? Not just like, oh my God, I'm a huge sports fan, I want to work in sports. I'm a huge cartoon fan, I want to work in cartoons. I've had people say that to me. I'm like, okay, great, but do you know how to, do you understand consumer insights when it comes to marketing? Do you understand how to put together a strategy? Do you understand how to put together, a cohesive creative brief or whatever it might be for the role? But understanding all those things, I think, is really important.
Thank you.
But it's how do you fill the need? Understand what the job is and what you can do to do that job, and being able to communicate it also in a really succinct and easy, succinct and easy to understand way is really important.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for, everything you're saying, I'm also taking in. So I proclaim my thanks on behalf of the group as well, though. We have another question here from James. James, I don't want to mispronounce your last name, but he asked that you made mention of moving to different divisions to help advance yourself.
Yeah.
What all goes into the decision when you are feeling like it's time to make a jump in your career or trying to decide which opportunity to take next?
Oh, wow. I think a lot of it depends on timing. Some is stage of life. Some is things I want to learn. When I moved to consumer goods to Diageo, the liquor company, I really, really, really wanted a strong CPG training. You get some really good concrete marketing skills in consumer goods marketing. It's very quantitative, it's very analytical, and I thought that was something I really need. There was a couple things associated with that I felt like I really needed to learn to advance my career. So that was a very specific job, and I actually took titles down to take that job. And it was the best move I ever made, quite honestly, because there are things I learned at Diageo and ways of thinking about strategy that I still use to this day and talk about all the time. And that was 1998, okay? That's how valuable that was to me. And then other things, sometimes it's life, sometimes it's just, hey, opportunity. Like the sports thing kind of came up as an opportunity for me, and looking to figure out as, this massive corporate reorganization took place. And I was talking to someone who knew someone, and they're like, yeah, you should talk to this person. I think they're going to make some changes. And that's how I got into this role, basically.
Thank you for that as well. It makes a lot of sense. I think that's something that a lot of people, they think that they want to do one thing, and even if they do enjoy that one thing, there's going to be that time or that stage in a career or in a life where you feel like something needs to change, or you feel like you have more to offer in a different way.
Sometimes you just want to do something different. I mean, I worked on Harry Potter for 5 years, and it's a really hard brand to work on. I got a little Harry Pottered out,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this opportunity came up. I could get a VP title at Cartoon Network. I get to do brand work. I'm like, this sounds great. So I took the job. I got the job and I took the job.
Makes sense. I mean, I marvel at, I know a lot of people that have worked in different industries or different facets of the same industry, but I feel like you have a track record of a lot of the big players, a lot of the big influencers in a lot of people's lives.
I've worked on great brands. I've had the very, very, very great fortune of working on great brands.
Wow. I mean, brands run the world in many
Yeah.
ways. I know we're scheduled to end at 4, so
Yeah.
I will ask you this one last question.
Okay.
What do you see your career looking like? Maybe not a job title, maybe not exactly what you're working on, but where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Not retired. Retired.
If that's the case.
Think I'm kidding? Oh, Sean.
I mean,
Yeah, probably part retired in 5 years.
wow.
Yeah.
And what will have been the deciding factor in what you consider to be a successful career?
Uh, you know, honestly, I think, and this is going to sound a little cheesy, but if I added value, if I made a difference in the businesses I've worked on, if I made a difference in people's lives and people who've worked on my team or worked with me, I mean, that's super valuable. I mean, I told you guys before, I'm all about mentoring. I have people who worked on my team, at Warner Brothers 15 years ago, I still keep in touch with. And if they need something, they know they can call me. I have people who worked on my teams at Turner for years and they know they can call me. I have great friends from my Diageo team back in the 90s. They know they can call me. So I think it's really about the people you meet and, did you make a difference on other people? And did you make a little bit of a difference on the business? Like I know, like anybody goes to Orlando and goes to see that Wizarding World of Harry Potter, I made a difference on that business. Anybody who looks at Cartoon Network and sees the brand and the air and how we package it up, I know I made a difference on that business. And it takes a team, obviously, but I know, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of did that. So it's kind of fun. But the people piece is what you always remember.
That is a beautiful thing. Tracy, as a fellow New Jerseyan, as a fellow member of the Syracuse University community, as someone that aspires to work in sports, thank you so much. For myself and on behalf of the many attendees that we had today, thanks again. Stay well, stay safe, and we look forward to all your great work on the MBA and all that else is to come.
Thanks, Sean. You did a great job, by the way. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Talk soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you guys for joining.